Hours after the 24 schoolgirls abducted from Government Girls Secondary School, MAGA, in Kebbi State were released, new questions are emerging about government strategy for sustainably winning the war against mass kidnappings. The girls were seized last week, and their freedom comes just days after the 38 worshippers abducted during a church vigil in Kwara State were also released. Kebbi State Governor Nasir Idris insists no ransom was paid, saying the rescue was achieved solely through the efforts of security agencies. But today, a different narrative is circulating. An unverified video posted online appears to show the bandits claiming that government couldn't rescue the girls, but made a deal with government to have them released. And that's raising difficult questions about what really happened, who negotiated, and whether the current approach is reinforcing or weakening the criminal networks behind these attacks. Thank you for joining us, everyone. You're watching Beyond the Headlines. All of this is unfolding while puppies and teachers remain missing in Niger State following last week's mass abduction at St. Mary's Catholic School in Papiri, an attack that has reignited calls for stronger protection of rural schools and a more coordinated national response to banditry. Against this backdrop, a high-level Nigerian delegation was in Washington engaging U.S. officials on a deeper intelligence support, faster processing of defense equipment, and a new cooperation framework designed to strengthen Nigeria's counterterrorism and early warning systems. So tonight, we ask the critical question: are we winning this fight, or simply recycling a cycle of abductions and non-kinetic releases without consequences? Joining me to help unpack these developments is lawyer and security analyst Dr. Bulama Bukarti. Dr. Bukarti, thank you for joining us on the program. Government says the 24 Kebbi schoolgirls were rescued through the efforts of security agencies. But an unverified video online says it's rather showing these bandits claiming it wasn't a rescue, that they released the girls after negotiations. From your experience, what does this contradiction signal about what actually happened?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am very happy to see that the 24, 25 Kebbi girls have been released. We hope and pray that government would continue to work towards rescuing every single Nigerian abducted recently or in the past. You are right that there appears to be some contradiction between the official account of what happened and what we saw in the video published by the bandits who abducted the girls. Of course, government wasn't very clear about how the girls were rescued, but they were very clear that no money was paid. The bandits video appears to show that there was some form of negotiation or talks between government representatives and the bandits, and that was what led to the release of the girls. But even the bandit video itself didn't say money was paid, and so we are not sure, and there are no witnesses saying any money was paid. But I'm sure if something was paid, time will tell us, because information will trickle down as it has happened in the past. But what worries me more than even negotiation is how bold the bandits were. They were so audacious that they could film themselves with the girls they took, even though most of them were masked, but they filmed themselves with the girls they took, and they were mocking the government. They were mocking the security forces, saying, "Were you rescued by the security forces?" And the girls shouting, "No." "Did we harm you?" "No." "Did we leave you hungry?" "No." I think that video is touting us, is touting every Nigerian. It is mocking our country, and it is mocking our government. And I think that is what is more worrying in the video than even the fact that there was a negotiation. We already knew that there was negotiation going on, especially because it was the it was the State Minister for Defense that was sent to Kebbi State. And we know that the State Minister for Defense negotiated the release of many students that were abducted while he was governor. And we know that that was his skill set, not fighting to rescue the girls. And we know that this government and all governments in the past have always said we were not going to attack the bandits. We are not going to attack them while they are holding the children, because that will harm the children. What is perplexing to me is, why are we then not attacking them after the students have been released? Every single time there was a kidnapping, government officials would say we are not going to attack them because they are holding children. The children will be harmed. The captives will be harmed. But after they have been rescued, we don't see the attack they talk about when the victims are in captivity.
Dr. Bukarti, we've seen multiple non-kinetic releases. It happened in Kebbi, in Kwara, and in other places, but no corresponding arrests or dismantling of the networks responsible. What danger does this pose for future attacks?
Yeah, I think we need to commend the presidency. I think this president has shown unprecedented sensitivity and attention to this matter. In the past, especially during President Buhari, we knew times when there were attacks and he would travel. President Tinubu canceled his trips and sent the vice president immediately to Kebbi to condole with the families. I think that should be commended. We also should commend the swiftness with which the girls were released, or some of the abductees, including the one in the church in Kwara. But you are right, the hard work begins now. How do we prevent further abduction of children? And I think it is this critical question that is not being asked, and it is this critical issue that is not being addressed. That's why we have seen more than 13 mass kidnapping of school students in the past 10 years or so. And under this administration, we have recorded 4 mass kidnappings. There was only one under President Jonathan. There were 8 mass kidnappings under President Buhari in his 8 years. In the first 2 years of this administration, there have already been 4 mass kidnappings of children. And I think President Tinubu would not want to set the record that he was the president under whom the most mass kidnappings took place in Nigeria. And the current trajectory is not good. I hope President Tinubu will look at that very well and try to make sure that there is no further school kidnapping in Nigeria, or any mass kidnapping aside of the 4 we have seen already. And the way to do that is to take some very clear measures. And President Tinubu is known for being radical. And I think our security architecture, our security strategy requires a radical reform. That's because over the past 10, 15 years, we have implemented the same strategy over and over and over again, and the situation only keeps escalating. And the definition of insanity is repeating one thing over and over and expecting a different result. And therefore, I urge President Tinubu to bring in radical reforms into our security strategy. Number one, how do you destroy the economic engine of the kidnap for ransom industry? These kidnappers are making hundreds of millions of naira every single year. And unless you take the profit out of the industry, it's not going to stop. How do you take down their supply routes? How do you take down their logistic routes? We know that the weapons, the drugs they are using are not produced in the bush. The food, the fuel, the medicine they need to operate are not produced in the bush. They are taken into the bush. How do you cut their supply routes? How do you ensure that the weapons and arms and the ultra-powerful Chinese-made motorcycles they are using do not continue to flow into the bush? These are issues President Tinubu needs to tackle now. We also need an enhanced rapid response system, because our rapid response mechanism currently is very limited, is very slow, and is very ineffective.
Well, I like that you've also talked about strategies, specific strategies that we must consider and not just reacting to the developments. There are big questions about why our rural schools, despite the Safe School initiative and the billions we've spent in the past over the years, still remain soft targets, in this regard. But I want us to quickly touch on Nigeria's delegation to Washington. We saw them strongly push back against allegations of genocide. From a security analysis standpoint, how important is controlling that narrative internationally?
I think controlling that narrative is very, very important, because when you simplify a particular security situation, it will detract you from the drivers and the root causes of the crisis. For example, if it was oversimplified as a Christian genocide, as President Trump and his people wanted to, then you are going to remove all the socio-economic issues leading to it, all the government weaknesses or our weaknesses in our security architecture, the fact that our borders are porous, the fact that our national parks or the jungles across Nigeria or the forests are completely dilapidated and they do not have any basic services, which is allowing the terrorist gangs to recruit, to operate, and to tax civilians. You are not going to address any of these causes and drivers. And also, at the international community, if it was accepted that there was a genocide, many severe consequences will follow. Number one, it will take the matter out of the hands of the Nigerian government. It will necessitate an international intervention. And if you did that, that will complicate control and command in Nigeria. It's going to complicate our political situation. It's going to complicate, religious relations in Nigeria. And it's just going to devastate everything, because international response may require foreign military being deployed to Nigeria, maybe a peacekeeping mission from the United Nations being deployed to Nigeria, and that is going to be very, very problematic. Secondly, if that narrative were allowed to fester and flourish, we may be talking about sanctions on Nigeria or the Nigerian government. And if there were economic sanctions on Nigeria, it is going to affect every single Nigerian, including those who are promoting this narrative of genocide. It's not going to separate Muslims and harm them and leave Christians, whom Trump is claiming to be supporting or be working to protect. Also, when assistance is withdrawn, or if the US government and the European countries decide to stop selling arms to Nigeria and helicopters and equipment, it is going to give these terrorists and criminal gangs a field day. And when they kill, they don't ask people's religion, they don't care about our tribes, they don't care about any other thing other than what they are looking for, whether they are extremists spreading their extremist ideology or making money. And so it's very important pushing back that narrative. And I think the presidency did very well, because it would have been wrong to continue to engage Trump on social media or to continue to engage them through conventional media. The best thing was to work with the administration. And I was very happy to see the delegation that was sent by the federal government. And from the statements we have seen since the visit, I think the visit was worthwhile. And I hope that engagement will continue.
But you agree that it's a difficult job for government when there are people back at home, especially those at the receiving end, who believe that's the best description for what they saw. There are Nigerians who sincerely believe that there's a genocide going on against Christians. And there are people who are at the forefront of the challenge in the Middle Belt. You've seen some clergymen, even prior to President Trump's response, who admit such appeal. And there are facts on ground. There are, logical questions to ask. We've asked, for instance, when you see these terrorists online using social media, brazening our security infrastructure, some of them not even covering their face. You're wondering how difficult is it to track people online these days. How do you think that the bigger challenge at home is being able to show these individuals that government has the willingness and the capacity to provide help for them? Now, if it's difficult convincing them otherwise, doesn't it make the international narrative a bigger problem to deal with?
Look, I completely agree with you that there are very big challenges in the Nigerian security environment that must be tackled. And part of what led to the recent outcry was failure or inability of government to tackle the security situation. And that is frustrating Nigerians, especially Nigerians in the heart of what is happening. But I beg to differ with you that it is the Nigerians on the ground who are suffering insecurity that started making this call. There are a significant minority Christian community. There is a significant minority Christian community in Borno State, in Yobe State, where Boko Haram operated for 10 years. And they know better than anyone else how the Muslim community was affected. No one denies that they are being targeted as Christians, but they also know clearly that Muslims are being targeted in the same way or even worse than how they were targeted. No Christian in Zamfara or Katsina or Sokoto will tell you that it is the Christian community that is being attacked as against the Muslim community. Every Muslim and Christian in those northwestern states, in northeastern Nigeria, and some parts of the north central, such as Niger and Kwara, know that these gangs do not discriminate when they attack. They attack every single individual they find indiscriminately. But there is a different kind of crisis in Plateau and Benue states. And we know that in Plateau State, for example, crisis has been going on for over 20 years. There have been attacks on the Muslim community. There have been attacks on the Christian community. In Benue State, the same thing happened. But then it wasn't the people in those communities that were making this specific claim of genocide. It was, I mean, as you might know, the recent ones were based on reports from Inter-Society. Inter-Society, a group that is not even based in Nigeria, certainly not in northern Nigeria, a group that has no connection or contacts with any victims in any of the states we are talking about, just sat down and made up numbers. They made up numbers literally without verification, without any links, without any credible way of verifying their figures. And I know you might have read the BBC Africa report, which dug into their data, which contacted them, and it came out and said their data is completely unreliable and incredible. It's unreliable, and they came out with data that is correct from ECLET, from Nigerian Security Tracker, and others. I think this narrative is rather being pushed by people who have a different agenda. They do not have the interests of Nigerian Christians at heart. What they have at heart is their own political agenda, is their own political interests. And many of them are not even living in Nigeria, and they want to continue to politicize the pains, the suffering of Nigerian Muslims as well as Nigerian Christians. I do not think they love Nigerian Christians or Nigerian Muslims, and it is not because they want to solve the situation. It is for political reasons. It is for their personal agenda that they started pushing this narrative. But like I said, no one is denying that there are real challenges. No one is denying that Christian communities have been attacked. No one is denying that Muslim communities have been attacked. But the best way to proceed is for us to unite as Muslims and Christians, because we are all affected, and to put pressure on government where pressure is needed, and to support our government where supporting the government is needed, lobby the government where lobbying is needed, to make sure that this security crisis is solved. We should not be competing who is a bigger victim than another, who suffered more than another. We are both suffering, both communities are suffering, and we should not let people with political agendas to divide us.
We're hearing that the U.S. has now promised more intelligence support, faster processing of defense equipment, potential access to excess defense articles and what have you. There are conversations as to how significant this will be for our fight against terrorism and banditry. We also saw commitment to early warning systems and humanitarian support for Middle Belt communities that you mentioned earlier. Can these measures meaningfully reduce the cycles of reprisal attacks? Because, you know, some analysts say Nigeria already receives substantial security support from the U.S., but still struggles with absorption capacity, intelligence. When this intelligence is given, the fact that we probably do not act on them. Do you consider that a fair criticism?
I think U.S. support, if done in the proper way, can be a game changer. And I say this because if you look at it, it is not intelligence or information that is lacking in our security environment. Every time there is an attack, you would hear the victims, the communities, or the intelligence agency saying, we gave a warning. The communities would be saying, we reported this incident 3 days before. We saw them gathering and we reported to the military base or the military come next to us, but they did not respond. It is not because our military, our soldiers don't want to respond. They want to respond, but they have a very limited response capacity. And so if the US is going to help us enhance our rapid response and rapid reinforcement capacities, that can be a game changer in the war. Secondly, if the US can help the Nigerian army, the Nigerian military to get on the offensive, on the front foot, then that is going to change the game in this crisis. Because as it is now, we are in the defensive. We are only reacting after there is an attack. The Nigerian soldiers are right now unable to attack Boko Haram in its bases in the Zambiza forest and the Lake Chad region. The Nigerian army currently is unable to attack on the ground, using ground troops, the bandits, terrorists in the northwest, in Zamfara forest, in Katsina forest, and elsewhere. They are unable to penetrate the bush and take the fight to them in their hideout. And that is what is allowing them to plan attacks and launch them. And the best way to defend is to attack. And so if we are able to attack them using ground troops, because I am emphasizing ground troops, because over the past 3 to 5, even 7 years, we have been using the air capacity. We have been using bombs. We have been using air strikes, but air strikes have proven to be ineffective because these terrorists have mastered the skill of dodging air strikes. So what you need is to take the fight to them using ground troops, of course, supported with our air support, by our air support and the Navy, but you need ground troops to penetrate the bush. And if the US can help in that, I think it will be a game changer. Finally, yes, the US has been helping the Nigerian government, but the US support has mostly been limited to the Northeast because the US government has only designated Boko Haram or proscribed Boko Haram as a terrorist group. And that's why when we bought the Super Tucano a few years ago, they made it a condition that the Nigerian government will not use the Super Tucanos against the bandits because the US government did not designate the bandits as a terrorist organization. Also, in the Middle Belt, no organization has been specifically designated as a terrorist organization by the US, and therefore that is what is complicating the support. And if the US government wants to support us to effectively fight the bandit, they should designate them as a global or international terrorist group, and therefore the Nigerian government will have the capacity to fight them in the same way it will be able to fight Boko Haram.
All right, good place to leave it. I wanted to get your opinion on the continued advocacy for negotiation with these bandits, vis-a-vis the need to also get justice for the victims, but we're completely out of time. Hopefully we'll continue this conversation subsequently. And news just in right now, President Bola Tinubu, in view of the emerging security situation, has decided to declare a nationwide security emergency, ordering additional recruitment into the armed forces. And by this declaration, the police and the army are authorized to recruit more personnel. The police will recruit an additional 20,000 officers, bringing the total to 50,000. It's also previously approved the nationwide upgrade of police training facilities. The police authorities are by this statement authorized to use various National Youth Service Corps camps as training depot. We'll bring you more updates on that story as it unfolds. Thank you so much, Dr. Bukarti, for joining us, lawyer and security analyst, Dr. Bulama Bukarti. Glad to have you come.
Thank you very much. I know our time is out, but I want to put it on the record that I do not support negotiations with bandits. We should fight them and maybe open a door for those who want to repent. We should not be negotiating with them.
Thank you so much. That's our show today, everyone. Remember, you can watch it again at midnight and 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.